Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech, episode 84. I am Andrew Zarian. I'm joined by a man that's not in his regular area. Paul Thurrott is in a hotel room somewhere. We cannot disclose where.
It's Anaheim.
Okay, we can disclose where.
Can disclose where.
Yeah.
That's right.
Paul is away, actually, at Build.
Yep.
And many viewers are dying to know what's been going on at Build because it is a huge, huge story this year. The unveiling, I guess the unveiling. We're getting more insight on Windows 8. We actually have something to show you guys in a little bit. There have been a lot of demos of the tablets running Windows 8. We're getting more information about the features and the UI enhancements and everything else. And Paul's the man to talk about this. We're going to be doing a Q&A, so if you have any questions you want to ask us, I'm sure Paul is going to be able to address them. So to begin, where do we start, actually? That's the thing. Should we get the Android bashing out of the way first, and then we go to it? No.
Yeah, what do we got?
There's a lot.
I made what I hope will be my most popular tweet of all time today, which was, hello, Windows 8, this is iPad, you win. And the follow-up to that is, hello, Windows 8, this is Android tablet. Who?
Yeah, who? I thought it was going to be going on What the Tech with Andrew Zarian. Tune in at 4 p.m. I thought that was going to be the most popular
that one
tweet.
was pretty good, too.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we're going to talk about Android, I want to say from what I saw, and you've seen a lot more, from what I've seen, and I've seen what pretty much everybody else that has gone to the blogs has seen, Android is done. To me, especially. I have no interest in an Android tablet at this point.
Well, as we've discussed in the past, I think the saving grace for Android might be Amazon, and that they still do have that ecosystem support. And I think we're going to be looking at three major tablet platforms: iPad, Android, and Windows 8. And how those things shake out, we'll have to wait and see. But I think specifically on the Android side, you're looking at the Amazon one as being the only truly viable tablet, unless something major changes. But yeah, so far, Android, unlike on the phone, has not really taken off in any appreciable way on the tablet. So I don't see anything happening short term to change that beyond, of course, the Amazon.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be some major overhaul in the way that they're conducted, because right now it has not been successful for Android. We don't know if it'll be successful for Windows 8. We are just, speculating at this point. But what do you want us to do? Do you want to show what you got in front of you?
Sure.
Okay, so Paul has a little treat for us.
Let's see if I can. I'll do the reveal.
Yeah, Paul is going to reveal something. Paul got his hands on a Windows 8 tablet. Look at that thing. Can you say who the maker is, or?
Yeah, it's a Samsung.
As Paul, see, this is what happens. You just broke up. You just broke up. What was that? It's the Samsung what?
Sorry, Samsung 700T.
Yeah.
It is a modified version of the tablet that Samsung will be selling with Windows 7 sometime in, I think, the next 30 to 60 days. It's modified to include a lot of additional sensors that Windows 8 can work with.
Okay.
I don't know which ones specifically, in the sense that I don't know which ones the Windows 7 version has, but there's an accelerometer, there's an NFC sensor or NFC capability in here. It has integrated 3G as well as obviously Wi-Fi, wireless, and so forth. 4 gigs of RAM, 64 gig SSD. I think it's an 11.6 inch widescreen, 16 by 9, 1366 by 768 display, which is very nice. Micro SD expansion and whatnot.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, it's I haven't actually done this yet, and I should, but it's sort of like a tall, slightly less pudgy version of the iPad. It's similar. It's probably heavier.
If you were to compare the responsiveness, would you say it's as responsive, more responsive, less responsive? What would you say?
So my comparison here is going to be a little bit unfair because I have the first gen iPad and I'm running the iOS 5 beta, which is slow on the first gen iPad. So
I have a second gen.
Yeah,
and I
would say obviously that machine is very snappy and it's running an OS that's custom designed for that kind of hardware. This particular machine is an i5, second gen i5 processor, so it's pretty serious. And in fact, if you're doing stuff on it, it comes with a nice dock, which let me see, I might be able to unplug this. There's kind of a dock that has HDMI, Ethernet, and USB on it. I'm sorry, you can't even see this. And this is kind of a nifty little thing. And then there's also a USB keyboard that comes with it. And you know, when you're actually using the thing, and this looks like an what do you call it? An Apple portable, you know, the Bluetooth
Sure.
keyboard.
Yeah.
Very similar, except it's black and it has Windows keys. You know, the fan kicks in, right? So that's one of those things you're not going to hear on an iPad, right? You're not going to hear a fan.
Okay.
You know, so this is not an ARM device, and I think those are going to be more of the iPad style tablets. But I think the neat thing here, actually, if you want, bear with me one second.
Sure, Paul. Sure, Paul.
I'll grab my iPad.
Let's watch Paul go get his iPad. This is interesting. A little voyeuristic, but there he goes.
Yeah. So, and I have it in just so you can see it. It's in that first gen Apple. Jeez, I'll figure this out eventually. You know, the iPad cover.
Yeah.
So, I mean, holding these things side by side. I mean,
it's bulkier, but
Windows tablet is heavier.
Yeah.
And it is thicker. And of course, I'd have to take it out of this case for this to be fair. But it's not. You know, they're not dramatically different. I mean, you can see the size difference here.
Oh, actually, yeah, it's not that. Yeah, because I'm comparing it to a second gen.
Yeah, I mentioned that the iPad was thicker, but it's really not, right? Or wider. It just seems that way because this Windows thing is taller. You know, it's got the wider screen. So this has essentially a 4:3 screen. The iPad does.
Okay.
And then the Windows tablet has
16 by 9.
Wide screen, 16:9. Yeah. So as far as responsiveness goes, I mean, honestly, let's see. I can let's see. I'll turn it on, and hopefully that does something. Tell me if it comes on. I can't see it.
It's on.
It's on.
Yeah.
So you can see how unresponsive it is. It's not even flipping around. How weird is that? Well, let's see. Let's see if I can make this happen. Trying to figure out a good way to do this. I'll balance
and
it on my
that's
face.
going to be universal. That look is going to be universal. Oh, okay. So now it's running Windows. So that startup screen is universal amongst tablets and the desktop and laptops.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And you know, probably again, I'm gonna it'll take me a bit to do this backwards, but it's super responsive.
Yeah. Look at that.
It's really, really nice.
So we learned a couple things. Actually, how do you? What is it like using that on a tablet? Is there a learning curve compared to the way you function in Windows when you're on a laptop? I mean, are you trying to do things that you generally can't on a tablet?
Yeah, there are various learning curves here, right? So this particular machine, I've kind of frozen. Am I okay?
Yeah, it'll come back. There you go.
So this particular machine is a full-fledged PC, right? It's an x86 class computer. It's going to run all your old software. Office 2010 is going to run on here. Anything that's available for Windows will run fine on this.
Which we discussed last week that on the ARM devices, previous versions of Office and a lot of other programs will not work.
On ARM.
On ARM, yeah.
On this one, they will.
Okay.
So I think the differentiator here, and it's I'm still not clear on how they're going to market these things, although we discussed this, was how are they going to sell ARM-based devices versus regular Intel-based devices, right? Because the ARM-based devices have the potential to be thinner and lighter and maybe have much better battery life. But all you're going to get is that start screen and the tailored apps that run under that new environment. If you run an Intel-based version of this, you get that stuff plus all the backwards compatibility of the Windows desktop and all the applications that run on the Windows desktop. So there are questions still around Windows 8, of course, and there will be going forward for a little while. We don't know what SKUs they're going to have, what versions, how they're going to differentiate ARM versus whatever. One of the things I did hear about ARM is that they're going to be making essentially a very special version of Windows for every one of those devices. So you won't be able to download an ARM version of Windows 8. It's something that has to come on a device, and it's custom tailored to that device as well.
So let's say you have is it custom tailored for ARM chipset or per device that it's on?
They said per device, but I actually think it's per chipset. I think that's how that works. So there are 3 or 4 different system on a chip type chipsets for ARM.
I mean, the other bad thing is that they do customization of the OS depending on who the manufacturer is.
Yeah,
so
it won't
you
be
might
by
have
it will by manufacturer of the chip, maybe. Yeah.
Okay.
Not of the device.
Like I don't want to see how how Motorola has their blur stuff on every Android device. I would hate to see some sort of skin or some sort of add-on that Acer or Asus is adding.
Well, anytime a new version of Windows comes around and you get a bunch of reviewers in a room, one of the first questions that comes up is, so this is going to be the version of Windows where you don't let the PC makers screw it up, right? And they never say yes to that question. So there are some good news bits here. So, for example, these Metro style apps, the ones that run in this new tailored environment, none of them can auto run at startup. So you can
Okay.
only go directly to the start screen. That means that if you have an ARM device, there will be no crapware on this. It's well, I suppose there could be crapware installed, but you can't have stuff auto starting on you. So that's
Okay.
very exciting.
So you won't be
Um,
able to get like a pop-up notification telling you to register your HP.
no,
It
you
won't.
could have a live tile that maybe has that on there, right?
Okay.
Because
Okay.
there are different tiles here on the start screen. I wonder if there's some way. I wish there was a way I could. I might even be able to dock this thing and not disconnect me. I'll try. So but as far as the regular, yeah, not really. So as far as as far as the real PCs go, it's a PC. PC makers think that they're adding value, and that's how they make money on these machines. I think we're still going to have that kind of issue with Windows
Okay.
8.
One other thing that we found out is about the Windows Store. Many people have been asking about what we're going to see from the Windows Store, and we found out that it's going to support both the tile style, the Metro style apps,
That's
and
right.
the standard Windows apps.
They didn't say this during the keynote today, but I talked to Steven Sinofsky yesterday separately, and he told me that Microsoft was not going to attempt to get any percentage of sales from anything in the store as Apple does.
Okay,
So
that's
that
interesting.
they're still going to curate it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone can get in. There's a very transparent and specific set of criteria that you have to follow to get your app into the store.
Have they stated what the criteria is? Because that'll be interesting. Are they going to be as close as Apple is, or are they going to be?
No, it's very transparent.
Okay.
It's very transparent. In
Okay.
fact, they have a step-by-step process where you can follow your app's progress through
Oh,
the
that's
certification
great.
process. That stuff looks very good. Unfortunately, the store is not available in this first preview build that we have, so I can't take pictures of it or check it out yet.
I'm just getting more information as we speak. The apps are there's no percentage that they're going to be grabbing. They're going to pretty much whatever profit that is made is all
It's
yours.
not just that. I should say, Apple has a very specific licensing model. So if you look at the Mac App Store, you have to allow the customer to install that thing on every single one of their computers, and that's just the way it is. And Apple takes 30%. On the Microsoft Store, which is called the Windows Store, that's not going to be the case. So if you're Adobe and you sell Adobe Photoshop for $835 or whatever the price is, and that thing only runs on one computer, well, that's your deal between you and your customers, and Microsoft's not going to get in your way. Now, from a customer perspective, of course, I would sort of prefer it the way that Apple does it, but I respect why Microsoft is doing it this way. And of course, I think that these new style apps, the ones that will run on this start screen on the Metro style UI, are going to be more akin to the things we see on the iPad, and thus will be less expensive anyway. And I think they will have freer licensing terms. So I think when you think of the typical iPad app, if you could consider a Windows 8 version of that, it's logical to assume that most developers will pursue a multi-PC license because that's the way things are.
I mean, this is a major overhaul of the OS, and I was reading one of a number of bloggers. I forgot who it was, so I'm sorry I can't give you credit, but they were saying how if Apple, if Lion was kind of like a gateway into seeing what the future of the desktop OS is going to be, Windows 8 has taken the full plunge. This is the future of the desktop OS. This is it, right? This is the direction that they're going in.
Yeah, one of the conversations I had with some of the other reviewers yesterday was, I mean, imagine if this fails, right?
Yeah.
There's no going back from this. This is a precipice. They can't recover from that.
No, you can't. You can't take this and say, "Oh, by the way, we're going back to." And again, I keep calling it classic mode, but okay, this failed. We're going back to where we were. You can't do that.
Can't do it. You can't do it.
This is interesting. I mean, what do you think of it? I mean, what's your honest opinion? And you're a heavy user. I mean, you're using things that most people don't. You're not, grandma that sits there and just turns it on to do emails. What is your opinion of that new Metro style UI?
Well, I think the UI is beautiful, and I say that with the full year and a half understanding of Windows Phone, having trailblazed this path. And I think one of the most wonderful things about this system is I feel like for the past year and a half, I've been trumpeting this Windows Phone thing, and no one is listening. No one uses it. Nobody cares.
Hmm.
And now all of the concepts and UIs and experiences and the way of doing things, all of it from Windows Phone is being brought into mainstream Windows. And now everyone's going to see it. And that's exciting to me because I already know how awesome it is. We noticed in the reviewers workshop, they had a number of machines lined up, and as one would fail, they would move on to the next one.
Hmm.
Now, this happened a couple of times in the public keynote today. It wasn't actually as bad, which
Failed
is
in what
nice.
sense? What did it do when it failed? It just
It would just things would stop working.
okay.
They wouldn't respond, and they recovered and moved on to the next one. But when we saw Windows 7 at the same point, I feel like it was further along. Now, 7 was a simpler project, right?
Hmm.
This time around, they're redoing Windows. This is a new thing.
Yeah, I mean,
it's,
7 was just redoing Vista into
yeah.
being, decent.
Yeah. So I don't want that criticism to be taken the wrong way, but it's a fact. I mean,
Yeah.
when Microsoft unleashes the floodgates tonight and people go download this, I just want to remind them, obviously as geeks and enthusiasts, you're going to want to do this, but you're also going to have some glitches and experience some bugs and so forth, and that should be understandable and understood before it happens, and also know that this build is really aimed at developers who are going to use the new version of Visual Studio to create these Metro-style apps.
And the build is available tonight.
Tonight, yeah.
The build is going to be available, and anybody could go and download it pretty much. Would you, and this is a question that I was going to ask you off the air, but, I'm sure many of the viewers have the same questions. How stable is it to run and to play around with?
It's not at all. But
not at all. Okay.
If you have a second PC, or you can split up a PC into a couple of partitions, try it out. I mean, I think anyone listening to this is going to. My advice there doesn't mean anything. They'll do it or not, depending on how they feel.
But I mean, their drivers are working. If I have an extra laptop, if I put it on the laptop, drivers will work. Wi-Fi probably will work.
Whatever works with Windows 7.
Okay.
And I've experienced this. I plug things into it, and they all work fine.
Okay. Yeah, this is. I'm really excited to get my hands on it because I have the fact that it works on older processors. It says it works on a first generation Atom processor with 1 gig of RAM. That's something.
Yeah.
I mean, and this kind of answers a question that I've been asking: how CPU heavy and how video heavy is the new UI?
Oh, well, less so than Windows 7's UI, as it turns out. So Windows 8 has the same hardware requirements as does Windows 7, but they're actually stressing the system less. And I think they showed off a bit of that today in the keynote where here, I think it was the netbook. Here it is. Here's what it looks like under Windows 7, and here's what it looks like under Windows 8. So actually, not that much at all. I don't know that a 1 gigahertz netbook is the way you want to go on this, but I mean, if it works in Windows 7, I think you could expect comparable performance or better.
Okay. One of the cool features that we discussed last week, and I actually think it's going to be very helpful for many people, is the restart and refresh feature, which is confirmed. I mean, I know it was going to be there, but they totally confirmed it. So it's it's a very simple system wipe and restore where it kind of brings everything back to the way it should be, and it keeps everything intact.
There's 2 versions, right? So you actually get the
is.
full wipe, which is back to factory conditions.
Okay.
It's neat because it's part of the boot process. I don't want to say part of the BIOS, but it's right up there up front. You can hold down a key, it goes into this mode, you choose which one you want. You actually have to log in as an administrator, right? So you don't, not anyone could just walk up and blow away your computer. And then you can choose between the 2 modes. It's I think they're called reset and refresh. Reset, of course, is the factory condition. And then reset takes all of your customizations, your data, and all of the apps that run under this new Metro UI, not your classic Windows apps, but all of the apps that run on the new interface, blows away Windows, reinstalls it, and puts everything back.
Okay.
Very, very exciting.
The refresh is, what does the refresh do?
That is the refresh.
That is the refresh. Okay, so it pretty much cleans it up. And then restart is a total wipe.
This takes like 4 to 5 minutes. It's not 30 minutes. It's not 2 hours. It's not a full day, which is I've spent certainly resuscitating Windows computers. It's a 4 to 5 minute process.
I'm going down the list. Some more. Both Metro Style and Win32 apps will be sold in the App Store. Okay, we discussed that. Editions. Have they confirmed any of the editions of Windows, like Professional, Ultimate, Home? What do we know?
No,
What
we looked at the build, and what's in there now are the same product editions that we see in Windows 7, and that makes sense because it's based off the same code base. They've said on separate occasions over the past couple of days that that decision won't be made until the future, and of course I think the addition of ARM is going to mess things up a little bit along those lines. So we'll see where they go with that. Hopefully less. I mean, they Steven Sinofsky was very candid about this with reviewers. He said, we hear you. We hear this complaint all the time. We get it. You want less. He's not making any promises, but the hope is that there will be fewer of these editions. By the way, one thing I wanted to show off was because they've never shown, and actually it's not. Look at this. It's all screwed up. Oh, because I have a thing on here. Is that's funny. It doesn't.
That's a wide screen.
Yeah, and it's a tall screen, but one of the things that they've never really showed off is that it works fine in portrait mode. It rotates and yes, it's usually quicker than that for some reason, but it's you can switch it, and all of the UIs work in both modes. And the reason that's neat to me is because that's one of the things that doesn't work in Windows Phone. Windows Phone, the start screen is designed to be held like this in portrait mode. If you turn the device this way, it doesn't switch over, and on Windows 8 it does.
Now, I'm going to ask you a very simple question. It's one of those questions like, does a car come in red? But can you change the green to anything else?
Right now, no.
Okay.
In fact, it's not a green color. It's actually a dynamic background of some kind. So we're looking to figure that out. But obviously, yes. I mean, that color will be changeable.
What's your favorite feature so far? I mean, you like it, huh? I mean,
yeah.
Do you love it? Do you feel that this is it? This is going to be the future of the modern OS?
I see the future in this thing, and again, the Windows Phone stuff blows me away because I already understand all of these UIs. The Windows Live guys are doing versions of essentially all those great Windows Phone apps. The calendar, the mail application, the photo stuff is all coming from them. That stuff looks like the Metro UI stuff on the phone. I love it. Start screen's wonderful. All that stuff. So I would say that the thing I like the most is not a single feature, although I would point to things like the Windows, that refresh or reset mode, the Windows to go portability stuff, the ability to have a Windows profile up in the cloud and log on anywhere and access all your files and stuff is really neat. But I think that the single thing that's the big deal here is more of a kind of a vague general notion, and that's just that they're giving you both that simplicity of the iPad and the ability to tab through things very quickly with your finger and run simple applications in full screen mode. And then you dock the thing and you're at a keyboard and you're at a mouse and you have a 30-inch screen. And this thing is a full-fledged honking Windows PC with all of the wonderful stuff that entails. And I really do believe that there are millions and millions of people out there who want that.
Yeah.
That they look at the iPad and they think, I like that, but I want it to run Windows 2. Can I get one of those that runs Windows 2? And I think when people see this, it's going to sell itself. And by the way, that's the big opposite thing between Windows Phone. The tough thing with Windows Phone is you have to load up Windows Phone with your own data to appreciate how beautiful it is. Whereas you look at this thing and it's so colorful and dynamic and beautiful. And then I think once you start playing with it and you see how quickly the screen flicks around when you touch it.
I mean, it's stunning. When I'm looking at it, I'm thinking this is the perfect tablet. This is the perfect device if I need to have the full functioning computer in my hands, but I don't want a full functioning computer in my hands. This kind of takes the place, and this kind of is the answer to everybody's argument, like, well, my iPad doesn't have Flash, and I can't do word processing on my Android, so this kind of does it all. I think single-handedly the largest impact that this device is going to have on the tablet market is the pricing structure of every tablet that exists, except for I don't think the iPad will change their pricing, but you have an Android device that's $700. And you're going to have, I'm sure that i5 tablet is going to be around $700-800.
Yeah. So I don't know how the iPad has existed for so long at this rarefied pricing structure. One of the things I've always complained about with the iPad is how expensive it is. Of course, people buy them, so what am I to say?
Well, I think the reason why they've been able to stay that pricing structure is that people justify the fact that, well, it's a lot better than everything else that's out there, so that's why it's $499, $500.
If we can get tablets that undercut the iPad and full-fledged Windows tablets that are the same price as the iPad, that's game over right there. I think they have to lower prices at that point. You can't justify it.
You think so? I
Now,
don't think they will. I really don't think they will, and I don't think
well,
the
no,
the
they won't
core
because
will
Apple
follow.
doesn't. But they don't stand still, right? So
Yeah.
Apple will add functionality to iOS. I mean, you got to remember before this thing even ships, Apple's going to have a chance to rev iOS again, and they're going to have a third generation iPad. So I wouldn't write them over out. I'm just saying, I, the way they do things is not to lower prices; it's to add functionality.
But how much?
Uh,
I mean, and again, that's something interesting you bring up because iOS 5 will be out, October,
soon. Yeah,
uh,
but
which we
that's not
know
exactly a
already.
game changer. I think the big thing for iOS 5 is that it detaches the PC slash Mac requirement, right? It
Hmm.
lets you do wireless sync if you need to.
Hmm.
It lets you do software updates over the air. You don't need a Windows computer or a Mac anymore. I think a lot of people are going to start using iPads and iPhones without ever connecting them to a PC, just like Windows Phone users do today, because the experience is so much better when you don't involve the complexity,
Yeah.
of that PC sync stuff. So I think you're going to see that, but that's a device. This is very interesting. Again, it's not for everyone. I think there will still be people who want iPads, of course, and there will still be people probably who want whatever Amazon tablet comes out. But I just think there's a big audience for this kind of thing, and I think what it's setting up is this is the three-way market of the
Oh
future.
yeah, 100%. I think even just if
And not three-way like
yeah.
the smartphone today is iOS, Android, and Windows Phone, as if those things were somehow equals. This is going to be far more equal, I think.
But again, with the pricing structure, I don't know how they're going to be able to compete in that pricing game. If you
Yeah.
have a full-fledged tablet, I mean, an
Well,
iPad that's running an iPad-sized device, the same weight, the same look, that's running Windows on it, and it's going to be $499. What
well,
what would possess you to go buy an Android tablet for the same price? And I'm an
I
Android
can't
user.
Android. I can't speak to. Look, we're kind of PC people or people that use computers. There's a huge segment of the population that doesn't want that complexity. They want to check their email and browse the web and do things like that. And an iPad or something very simple like that maybe makes a lot more sense. Now, an ARM tablet from a Microsoft partner running Windows 8, which won't run all those legacy PC apps, is very similar in
Which
some
I'm fine
ways to
with,
an iPad.
actually. I'm fine with that in a way.
Yeah, it just comes down. Look, the iPad stuff is great, but when you look at the start screen, if you were to put this thing next to an iPad and compare the two UIs, I mean, seriously, it's like Fisher Price and beautiful, wonderful Vermeer painting over here. I mean,
Hmm.
they're not even comparable. So Apple's got a good name, they have a good brand, and they make good stuff, so they'll be fine. It's not like iPad disappears, but I think we're looking at kind of a three-way race here.
But can we talk about the SkyDrive integration? How are they going to do the cloud integration? Did they go into that?
Yeah, so this is actually one of the many areas where we still have questions. But what they showed us during the reviewers workshop, and I think they showed today too, was deeper integration of SkyDrive. One thing they didn't show us, but which I have seen on the side,
Hmm.
is SkyDrive integration into Windows Backup. And I don't know whether that means backing up your full Windows PC, which I doubt, frankly, given the size limitations, but perhaps backing up your profile and your data and things like that. And then you could resuscitate your computer and get it off of SkyDrive. So
Hmm.
we'll have to look further down the road to see if that's the case. But the thing I did see, if you're used to SkyDrive today, and if you go to the web interface, you have documents and folders essentially, and you've got those views, and then you have views of things like groups if you have those, or items that other people are sharing with you. So you
I
have
tried
those.
to use it, Paul, and it
Yeah.
didn't work for me. I don't know why. I
Well,
just
it does. I know why, because it doesn't integrate at all with Windows.
yeah.
So going to a web page to move folders or files around is silly. I mean, and hopefully there'll be a deeper integration there. But one of the great Windows 8 features is the ability to automatically remote your profile. So you have your start screen set up a certain way with certain apps installed, certain customizations in place, and so forth. You can log on with your Windows Live ID and have it all up to the cloud. And that goes into SkyDrive. And when you're on another PC and you log in with your Windows Live ID, everything comes back exactly the way it was. And that's a very cool feature. But
Hmm.
there's also kind of a remote access feature. I've talked a lot on my site about some of the ways I do remote access, and I use two Log Me In services to do that. One is Log Me In Pro, which gives me many things, but the thing I use it for primarily is an FTP style remote interface so that when I'm on the road, I can back up files to my home server, without having to wait until I get home.
Okay.
The other feature is a VPN called LogMe and Hamachi, and that gives me, again, many things: the ability to do drag and drop to shares on my home server, but also the ability to do a remote desktop connection. So if I want to control a machine back home, I could do so.
Hmm.
And they're building some features like that into Windows Live SkyDrive. So your devices that are connected to Windows Live SkyDrive now appear in a devices section in that left pane in SkyDrive. And you can go browse the file system of any of your connected computers while you're away from home, giving you the ability. It's not so much drag and drop, although you could drag and drop into the Explorer window, I suppose. But it's the ability, it's that thing that I do now with Hamachi, which is
Yeah, which we
I'm
use
on the road.
Hamachi. We use Hamachi here to transfer. Our production director uses Hamachi to grab all the files.
Oh, so I have a tip for you on that one, by the
Okay.
way, which we can share later. But
Okay.
um, this gives you that ability through the web,
Mm,
and it's
very
neat
nice.
because it's just built in. You've logged in with Windows Live. Your home computer is home, and you're on the road like I am now on a laptop, and you can go into SkyDrive and see your home computer in there and navigate through the file shares, actually through the entire file system, and not
Hmm.
even just the shares, but the whole file system, as if you were sitting in front of the computer. It's pretty cool.
Now, again, the same question that I've had a couple times, and we really have not been able to get a great answer because we didn't know, but we might know now.
Hmm.
Let's say you're someone like me and you are CPU intensive. I mean, you really use this and you rely on every bit of power that your CPU has.
Yep.
Is the Metro style UI, the fact that it's there, how does it work? Can you turn it off? Can you say, I never want to see this again? I never
No.
want to, I just want to use Windows as the Windows that I know. Can you
No.
do that?
No. The two levels to that. So as a consumer, no, you cannot.
Okay.
The Metro UI or whatever it's called. By the way, they've never really named it. They call it a Metro style UI.
Okay.
It's most obviously exposed to the user through the start screen, but that environment really involves more than just that start
And
screen. But
I don't think they've called Windows Classic either,
no, but
which we've
I
invented.
refer to it now as the classic Windows
Yeah.
desktop or legacy Windows apps. I.e. the ones we're using today, which is
Yeah.
kind of a weird way to look at it, but. No,
Somebody
as an
asked why.
individual, the thing you need to understand is that the start screen or whatever it's called
Yeah.
is the shell. It's the Windows shell.
That's it. There's nothing. Yeah.
The old desktop, which is still there, is not loaded by default and will only run if you wanted to. And as far as the start screen is concerned, is an application. So
Okay.
it's not as hokey as that sounds because obviously the apps that you run within the desktop are not emulated or something. They're really running natively. It's still Windows is still there, but
Yeah.
from the perspective of a corporation, if you looked at Windows 8 and said, "Yeah, this is cute and everything, but I don't want the start screen," you can turn it off,
You can't.
and
Okay.
and you can. Now,
Okay.
it's still there, but it's just that users won't see
Yeah,
it.
because
And the,
I'm speaking as far as enterprise goes, and somebody asked why would you? One example is that our production machine here that Paul is on,
Mhm.
I it's an i7 and yes, it's powerful, but I never want to see that on this computer. I have no reason to see it because all it does is run the streaming software, run the video software, and run Skype. I would not
so
have a need for that.
unless something changes, or unless someone finds a secret that Microsoft is saying doesn't exist, you as a user would have to deal with this. Start screen will come up, and you can click on the desktop tile, and you're in the desktop. I
Okay.
mean, there's no way to bypass that.
Okay.
Um, I remember, some months ago, 6 or 8 months ago, I talked with the Windows team, and I asked them, I said, eventually you're going to start talking about Windows 8, and it seems like Windows 7 is going gangbusters compared to Vista, certainly with the enterprise.
Hmm.
And now you're going to turn around and have this new Windows release. I mean, how does that impact you? Because obviously Windows 8 is not going to be deployed in the enterprise to the same degree that Windows 7 was because they just did it. That's
Yeah.
not how businesses upgrade. And the thing they told me, which now makes more sense having seen it, is that as far as Microsoft's concerned, Windows 7 and Windows 8 are identical to the enterprise. They
Okay.
basically offer the same feature set. They look and work exactly the same way. Don't care which one of those things that businesses roll out because the capabilities are all very similar.
Okay.
And that makes sense when you realize that in Windows 8, they can turn off that start screen and just have a desktop. And it looks like Windows 7. So from the perspective
Hmm.
of the user, these things are largely identical. I mean, obviously there are some differences in Explorer, and there are some additional capabilities in the shell, but basically speaking, they're very similar. So it's not like going from XP to 7, where you have a very different user experience. 7 to 8, when you just look at the desktop, very similar. and I think will be a no training type situation. They don't have to worry about training people again on a new UI, and I think that's their big concern.
I think the fact that the Metro style UI is incorporating your mail, photos, calendar, and everything else you're doing will really give it a bump for Windows Live, because now that Windows Live ID that you got years ago and you've never really bothered remembering what the password is, now it comes in handy, and now it actually becomes functioning, because you kind of are forced to put it in.
Yes, from a usage perspective, I think we're all going to be using Windows Live a lot more than we were. On the other hand, because of their approach where the content is the most important thing, again, this is very straight out of the Windows Phone playbook where, the Chrome of the surrounding application goes away. What we care about is your content. So when you're using a Windows Live Mail app or the Photo app, the Calendar app, the People app, which is your contacts management database, you don't really have any sense at using Windows Live because it's just a full screen app. It's a beautiful UI. It's got the Metro style fonts, nice text treatment, and so forth. From their perspective, they call it a kind of a humble approach. It's true of both Windows and Windows Live, where, look, we understand that we're not what's important in this equation, so we're going to go into the background. Don't worry about us. We'll always be here, but you don't have to, there aren't big Windows flags on top of everything. They're not pushing that brand anymore, and what they want is for the apps to be for the apps to take down that prominence that they already have in users' minds, so they're kind of going to move to the background.
Any idea when a final build will be complete? They can push this back because you did say earlier that it isn't as far along as Windows 7 was at the same time, but it made sense that they wouldn't be because it's a totally new look. But do we expect the same time as last year, maybe November release?
It'll be earlier than that, I bet. And again, this is just a guess, but talking with guys like Ed Bott, Mary Jo Foley, and some of the folks in the press, we kind of discussed this, and we looked at the previous schedule, and he said, last time they had a 3-month gap between each of the milestones. So we went from developer preview to beta to release candidate to RTM and then to general availability. So you can kind of map it out.
It felt like Windows 7 was out for a full year.
Yeah, I think
everybody had their hands on it.
Picture 3 months from September is what? December, January, beta, second quarter for the release candidate, mid-year for RTM, and then roll it out by August, September on new PCs, so they'll barely hit back to school perhaps. And I think that's about as aggressive as they can be on this. It really is not there. And that's one of the important things. Again, if you're going to, actually, see, I have not downloaded and installed a build on a real computer yet. I've only used it on the thing that they've provided. So maybe it's going to be better. I don't know. But I'm curious to see it on hardware that I'm familiar with, so I can do a better and more fair comparison. But, what I've seen so far, and seriously, the sheer number of times that things crashed or glitched or whatever during that reviewers workshop we had yesterday was not alarming, but it kind of brought home the fact that this thing is not ship level. I remember with Windows 7, we were all like, God, you could ship this thing right now. It's great. And that's definitely not the case for Windows 8. So.
Which I wouldn't expect it. I don't think anybody expects it to be ready at this point.
It's big. And that's, you have to remember this. It's such a big change. They're going to get feedback now that people outside of Microsoft are using it, where they're going to run into these things they never thought of. And people are going to say, this is dumb. Why don't you do this? And someone somewhere a light's going to click, and they're going to say, oh yeah, we got to change that. And, so they'll make some changes, and we'll see. But
any information on how this is going to impact Windows Phone? Are we going to start seeing changes in Windows Phone to kind of match?
So it doesn't look like they're going to announce this here. Maybe because Windows Phone 7.5 is just coming to market. But I have been told now by several sources that Windows Phone 8 will be Windows 8, and that the big question right now is how they're going to handle backwards compatibility, and that has actually degraded since the last time I got information about this, to the sense that they may not be able to port it. They may not be able to bring over Windows Phone apps to Windows 8, and so they may require application makers to recompile and provide new versions of those apps instead. But yeah, I've heard now from multiple sources that Windows Phone as we know it is going away, that it will become Windows.
Okay, it's just Windows, and this is, of course, none of this is confirmed.
But they would still call it Windows Phone 8. It makes sense, but it would be based on Windows 8.
Okay, well that's, I guess that's a dream, right? Have one platform for everything.
Yeah, if only someone else had blazed the path in this way, and
Yeah.
So nice. It makes sense.
So other than the Metro style UI, there are changes done to classic mode. The task manager is different. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, the task manager is nice.
Yeah, it's really nice actually. I like the fact that everything is split up and it's not the 20-year-old task manager we've had.
They also use kind of a heat zone effect, so that the the biggest problem apps are like red,
Oh, really?
and then
I
they
don't
kind
see
of
that.
radiate out. So you can sort them by problem. So
Yeah.
which apps have the biggest problems?
I mean, listen, this is going to be highly successful regardless if it works or not, I think. I think people are going to jump into this. I think a
That's
lot of
good,
people
yeah.
are going to get really excited and they're going to jump
Well,
into it.
there,
And
it's not quite the seven stages of grief, but you got to remember, we get excited when we see things, and then the reality is often different, and then you kind of come down from that high,
yeah.
and you realize not everything is perfect. But um, I think that somewhere between the pie in the sky, oh my God, this is the most incredible thing I've ever seen, and oh, this will never work.
Mhm.
There's a reality, and it's pretty damn good. So
I'm just going down some more facts. There's so much information that's coming out and still coming out that
of course,
it's
and now that
crazy.
people have these things, people are going to find stuff.
So do you get to keep yours or is it's yours?
So no, most if you attended PDC and you paid to be here as a developer would, yes, that's yours to keep, and you can bring it home, and you're all set. What they told the reviewers was that this was a loaner that we could keep for the week, which is the first time they've ever done that. They wanted us to give these things back before we went home. So I talked to the PR guys and I said, look, I'm not giving you back the
Yeah.
no. I have to write a book, and I'm going to need some kind of touch hardware. I don't mind buying one of these things. Like I said, remember, there's going to be a shipping version of this hardware coming out very soon. I said I have no problem buying the hardware. That's not the issue, but I have to write a book, so I'm going to need touch hardware. And if maybe I could keep this until the shipping hardware comes, or whatever. And so they said they would work with me on that, and we'll see what comes out of that.
How much is the hardware going to be?
Actually, I think they're pretty expensive. I think it's been a while. I just looked at this a couple weeks ago, but I want to say it was over $1,000, and it was like $1,200 or something.
I mean, but it's an i5. You're getting a computer. You're getting a computer crammed into a screen.
Yes,
A little
yes,
screen.
yes.
It's a powerful machine. I'm really excited, Paul, and I sent you an email early on. I said I haven't been this excited about technology in a long time.
Yeah, we have different milestones that we can point to that we all remember, right? Everyone points to Windows 95 because that was such a big event, and
Mine
people
is my
lined up.
first Mac.
The first Mac, okay.
No, I'm joking. Actually, I like my first Apple.
No, by the way, the first Mac, that unveiling is very exciting.
No,
Back-
my first Mac.
Oh, your first Mac.
My
Your
first Mac. Yeah.
Your first Mac was not very exciting. But well, what was your first? Was it a Performer of some kind? Because
I got you know what? I'm new to the Apple thing. I was actually a Apple hater for many years. I had no interest in getting an Apple, and then I got a MacBook when they went to Intel.
Okay.
So and I actually really like it. I'm on a MacBook Pro now, and nothing bad to say
those are nice
about it.
machines.
But you know what it is, and this is one thing that I've done, and I've told you, and I've told the viewers, I've gotten my hands on a couple of Windows laptops now, so I'm using Windows a lot more, and I have so many Windows laptops laying around that I'm gonna install Windows 8 as soon as I can, so I could learn about it. Even I'll deal with the buggy stuff because I could just throw this thing in a corner and never turn it on again. But it's exciting because it's so different. Microsoft has this stigma that they are not a innovative, young, hip company.
Right.
But it's the total opposite. Over the last 10 years, they have created the Xbox, created the Xbox 360, come up with Windows Phone. Even the Kin was an interesting project, and I never bashed the Kin. I said the problem with the Kin was that the providers were selling this crazy data pack that would never let it survive. But they have done a huge step into becoming a hip company. But Apple still gets the glory, and Apple gets the praise that, Apple's this cool artsy company, but Microsoft isn't. Do you think that this is going to really change it in the mainstream when an average person that, even let's say a Mac user that's still going based on the XP perception of what Microsoft is, and they're screaming, I get blue screens of death, I can't use Windows.
Yeah.
What do you think they're going to pick it up and say, wow, this is unbelievable?
So there are two ways this could go. The Xbox 360 is Microsoft's only product that engenders an Apple-style love affair from its fans. When these things were failing left and right a few years ago, and people were sending them back for the third or fourth time to be fixed, they were not replacing them with PS3s. They were sending them back and getting them fixed and getting right back to work on them. So it would be nice if Microsoft could have another product like that. And there is a chance that Windows 8 is so beautiful that I think a lot of people are PC users, kind of just use PCs because they don't know any better and don't think much about it, and maybe because they have to in some cases for work, and they just assume this is what computing is.
Yeah.
It would be nice to turn those people into advocates for a platform that mattered. And I think Windows 8 does have that possibility. But on the flip side, I think there's a cautionary tale here, and that is that in 2003, Microsoft also had a developer show where they showed off Longhorn, and everything they showed off was fake, by the way, which is not the case here. I mean, we can prove that because we have the code. But everyone got very excited. In fact, the 2003 PDC was far more exciting than what we're seeing today. And there was a sense that Microsoft was going to kick ass, that they were going to put Apple out of business, that it was all over, that there was no way anyone was ever going to catch up. And none of it happened. So, worst case scenario is we could have another Longhorn on our hands here, and you want to be sort of careful of that. Now, I don't believe that, but I just want to throw that out as just to be even-handed about it. I mean, I think somewhere between Windows 95 and Longhorn, is Windows 8, and clearly it's more exciting and is very interesting. For me personally, I hated Microsoft in my younger days, seeing them as a company that copied other people's software, and I didn't find them very interesting. And it wasn't until Windows 95, or what became Windows 95, Windows 4 at the time, that I sort of saw something where I said, okay, this is very, very interesting and very exciting. And over the years since then, I mean, it's been up and down. Some stuff has been great, some stuff hasn't been so great, but this is the most exciting thing that I think has happened in the Windows space
in a long time.
In a long time. I have a hard time even
95. I mean, I guess from 95.
I
right?
go back to 2003. Even it crashed and burned in ways that are biblical, but that was so exciting. I mean, I think that's the only thing that beats it is 2003 and the Longhorn announcement. That was going to be so incredible. I get chills just thinking about it. It was amazing, and this is the only thing I've seen that comes close to that. Windows 95, for whatever it's worth, for as good as it was, I mean, the one thing we didn't really understand until later in life was that there wasn't really much going on there. I mean, the 32-bit underpinnings had been done before in Windows for Workgroups. The application model had been done before, obviously, in NT. The UI itself was good and has taken us for the past 15 years or whatever. But this, in many ways, Microsoft brings up Windows 95 because Windows 95 was a high point. It was a high point with their consumer excitement, and I think they want to recapture that. And I look at this and I think this is something that could do it. I'm afraid to predict that because things haven't really gone that way for Microsoft, as you've noted. But if anything has a chance to get people excited about Windows again, this is it. And this is it in ways that were not going to happen with Vista, that were not going to happen with Windows 7, that were not going to happen with Windows XP or Windows 98 or whatever. I mean, this is just, there is something special here. It's neat. And it's nice to see user experiences and UIs that were pioneered in other parts of Microsoft, Windows Phone Group and Zune before that, and Media Center before that. These things are all of a family, and it's really neat to see it finally hit in a product that's going to be mainstream, whether you want it to be or not. And that's great because it deserves to be out there. So
now
I think people are going to love it.
I know you got to run because you said you need to get out of here, but did you get a chance to play with Media Center at all?
No, so Media Center's not in this build.
Okay. I was really curious to know about Media
even
Center.
look, so,
Yeah, all right. I'll let you go because I know you have a busy day. I know the next couple of days are going to be crazy for you. So, and I'm really excited to see what you put on winsupersite.com, your blog. I guess that's going to be the source where a lot of people are going to have to go to find out. This is really, really cool. And again, I'm going to say it. I'm really excited about technology again. I'm really excited about Windows again because from what I've read and what I've seen, and I'll be getting my hands on it within a couple hours, much like everybody else that's going to download the developer preview.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to see what this is going to be and how comfortable this UI is going to be on a laptop and not a tablet.
the things you need to understand is that when you use it on a laptop, there are a couple of conventions that are different. They use this notion of swiping from the sides of the screen to bring up certain menus, for lack of a better term, toolbars, whatever, different user interfaces. That stuff is a little different with a mouse and a keyboard. So when you're on the start screen, I mean, the thing you want to remember is to click down in that lower left corner as you would to hit the start button on a normal Windows PC, because that will bring up that side UI, whose name is yet to be determined, but it has the what they call charms, which is an awful name, but it's the 5 icons, start and search and share and so forth. That's a little unclear, so just so you know, you're going to want to do that.
All right, excellent, Paul. I want to remind everybody, each and every week, Paul joins me here for What the Tech. We discuss pretty much. We don't really. It's not all Microsoft here.
It's not usually Microsoft, but this is Microsoft's week.
Yeah.
Although I'm surprised Apple hasn't announced their iPhone/iPod event this week just to screw with Microsoft.
And Google too. Everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, what was the Hamachi tip? You want to tell me before we go off?
You'd be better off using LogMeIn Pro or LogMeIn the free version to do file transfers. It has a file manager built in, and that the file transfers over that service are actually much faster than over Hamachi.
Okay. That's a very good tip. That's Paul's tip for me.
Something to test.
I want to let everyone know the show will be on our website at gfqnetwork.com within a couple hours if you missed any part of this, but we also replay throughout the week. You go to gfqnetwork.com. If you want to watch it live, you go to gfqlive.tv. You could join the chat room. We have a great chat there, about 80 people in there right now. So it was great to see a bunch of people come in. Paul, thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we'll see you all next week on What the Tech. Good night, everybody. That was interesting, that demo. And then the Skype call, too.
It's hard. I don't know how to do it on here. I mean, it's
well, that's the best way.
Backwards. I mean, it's just tough.
That thing is so cool.
Did I get it? So I can't even tell if I turned it on. Okay. So it's interesting, Oh no, there it is. So now this is how it's supposed to look. See how it's in portrait mode, and then you kind of zip up.
And then the password, the image is where you do the password, right? I saw a demo where you tap on the eyes.
Yeah, there are 3 ways to do passwords. You can do actually, there are more than 3 ways. Most people use a password, right? And that works. You can do a pin type password like you would on Windows Phone, where you have a small keyboard with just numbers on it. Yeah. And then you can do the picture password, where you have a photo on the screen and you touch and swipe in your own way. You determine how you want to do that. Why is this not going? It's stuck. So, yeah, there's that. That's cool. The welcome screen is neat, is beautiful. I mean, it's just pretty. I mean, the thing comes up and it's like, wow,
Yeah.
it's pretty. It really is pretty.
I don't know. You think it's going to be the one?
I think it's going to be one of the ones. There's nothing Microsoft can do to change the fact that the world is changing, right? So in the past, when PCs were the way that we handled personal computing, Microsoft dominated. They were 90 to 95% of the market the whole time. They are never going to be 90 to 95% of the market going forward, because between phones, tablets, and computers, we're talking about a much bigger market that's going to be much more heterogeneous with different platforms. So I think it could change, but I think for the foreseeable future, those are going to be the 3 platforms: the Android, iOS, and Windows.
Very exciting stuff. Very exciting stuff. It's crazy how this thing is so different than Windows.
I know.
Do you think they'll ever drop the name?
Windows?
Yeah.
God, they're so stuck on Windows. I don't believe so, but I'd like to be proven
Somebody
wrong
asked that before.
I wish they would.
All right, Paul. I appreciate it. I'll let you go. I know you need to be out of here at 5. I really appreciate you hanging on.
Yeah. Sorry I'm distracted.
No problem.
I will talk to you next week.
All right, go play. Bye, Paul.